downright apocalyptic images coming out of Australia.
Overnight, Hurricane Zeta barreling into the Gulf.
The other top story of the day is the weather. From coast to coast to coast.
This morning, waves thrashing Florida's coastline in a season that's seen
a fortnight of torrential rain has seen floodwaters at the highest level.
Start with the massive floods that are ravaging much of China. More than 200.
The search is on for those still missing after the tornado outbreak in Tennessee that killed at least.
Turkey has been struck by a powerful earthquake off its
snow will fall across low-level areas of the state this week.
There are now 6 fires burning at emergency level.
The smoke is so intense and so thick it can be seen from space.
A year ago, God sent you and me a message that in the year 2020, people would begin seeing many things clearly. He would show us signs. He would show us evidence with examples of coming events. He stated that we were to expect various types of disasters: hurricanes, volcanoes, fires, snow, earthquakes, tornadoes, high winds, hail, freezing temperatures, extreme heat, extreme drought, flooding, and even pest infestations. It also said that crawling and flying pestilences of some kind will be witnessed in every corner of the world. He also told us of a great sickness that would produce serious economic consequences. However, the most important thing is that these signs show that Jesus is about to return to this earth. As we begin this video, the calendar shows it is close to the end of the year 2020. Let's see if this is really true. Has God begun to do what He said He would do? Well, let's go back to the very beginning of 2020 and recall some of the things that have occurred. I was shown that God is grieving and crying over the events He must allow to happen. Let's start at the beginning of the year 2020 and review just a few of the things that started to happen as the year began. In January, just as the year began, an overnight rainstorm in Jakarta, Indonesia, dropped almost 15 inches of rain that caused 2 rivers to overflow. The deadly flash floods displaced tens of thousands and killed 66 people. Across the globe, something different happened. A strong 6.4 earthquake struck the island of Puerto Rico. It was part of a swarm of over 1,500 other earthquakes, magnitude 3 or higher, as a result of major damage to homes. More than 8,000 who were left homeless camped outdoors in crude shelters. A power plant that supplied over a quarter of the island's energy was so badly damaged that it had to be shut down. Damage to government structures was calculated in the hundreds of millions, and financial losses were estimated at over $3 billion. Then, a few days later, still in January, subtropical storm Kurumi produced intense storms and flash floods in Brazil, causing devastating landslides. A city of more than 2.5 million inhabitants reported the highest rainfall in over 110 years. The rain destroyed bridges, collapsed the roof of a mall, and killed over 70 individuals. But wait, still in January, Storm Gloria in Spain brought wind gusts of over 60 miles an hour, killing at least 12 people. It lashed much of the eastern part of the country for 3 days. The storm cut electric power, forced the closure of schools, and interrupted road and rail connections. It also brought heavy snowfall, freezing rain, and massive waves that smashed into seafront promenades and damaged shops and restaurants. Quite the opposite was happening in South America. Rivers and reservoirs in Chile reached historic minimums. And across the world in Zimbabwe, the ongoing drought brought severe food insecurity. Cornfields wilted as a result of unrelenting heat and poor rainfall in southern Africa. Speaking of drought, in the state of California, we have had about a decade of drought. At the same time, Siberia was experiencing a warm January. The heat, combined with low soil moisture, contributed to widespread wildfires. Russia's Forest Service resorted to using explosives to battle the blazes. In Australia, at least 34 people died in massive bushfires that destroyed nearly 2,800 homes and killed over 1 billion animals. Scientists are afraid entire species may have been wiped out by the months of relentless fire. It was an unprecedented scale of burning, about 46 million acres across 72,000 square miles. In the meantime, something different was happening in the Philippines. The Taal volcano erupted, covering towns and villages in ash. Cracks and fissures appeared on roads. Many homes were damaged by the tremors. Schools were closed and thousands were forced to flee. The damage to agriculture was estimated at well over $62 million. These are just a few samples of what happened in January. Let's turn the calendar and look at February. In February, southwest Iran received a whole year's worth of rain in 3 days. The rain ruined thousands of homes, wiped out crops, and destroyed or damaged more than 300 bridges. In some areas, the massive flooding blocked all roads. At least 150 villages were left without electricity. In the United Kingdom, Storm Dennis followed Storm Kira in bringing extreme weather and record-breaking floods to the Wye Valley. Across the world, in the Russian Kuril Islands, something different was taking place, a 7.0 earthquake. Another event mentioned in my Dream 2020 Year Seen Clearly was infestations. The dictionary defines an infestation as an invasion of harassing, undesirable, or troublesome insects, vermin, predatory animals, and the like. Still in the month of February, Australia experienced an infestation of hundreds of thousands of flying foxes, also known as fruit bats. They filled a town in North Queensland. The noise they produced was deafening. Some trees were so full of bats that they broke from the sheer weight of them. Emergency helicopters were unable to land at the local hospital while the bats were in flight. On top of all of this, the bat droppings created a terrible stench. Tourism in the area was affected. Meanwhile, in Kenya and other countries in the region experienced heavy rains and cyclones. As a result of the abundant rain, massive swarms of desert locusts multiplied and grew. Northern Kenya received a swarm estimated at 200 billion of the pest that covered 930 square miles, possibly the largest on record there. It wasn't just Kenya, but several other countries also experienced heavy infestation of locusts. For example, Ethiopia, Uganda, Somalia, Eritrea, India, Pakistan, Iran, Yemen, Oman, and Saudi Arabia. It was the worst infestation in 70 years, and it continued into the month of March. Let's turn the calendar to March and see a few examples of what God was showing related to the dream 2020, year seen clearly. As March began, another earthquake shook the Russian Kuril Islands. The magnitude of this one was 7.5, even stronger than the one in February. Next, an unusual cyclone as strong as a Category 1 hurricane formed quickly over Egypt. It was accompanied by sandstorms, destructive winds, and torrential downpours that wreaked havoc throughout the Middle East. In Egypt, it killed 21 people and caused widespread flooding and damage. Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq all experienced flooding and destruction. Some experts have estimated that for this region and time of year, the storm's intensity was exceptionally rare. Still in the month of March, and mostly in the Nashville, Tennessee area, EF3 and EF4 tornadoes damaged many homes, businesses, vehicles, and airplanes. The tornadoes injured hundreds, killed 28, and caused billions of dollars in damage. What about April? While the locust infestations continued to cause grief and hunger in Africa, almost 140 tornadoes left a path of destruction from Texas to Maryland. The tornadoes destroyed many homes, businesses, and vehicles, causing 35 deaths and $3.5 billion in damages. Did anything happen in May? Oh yes, in May and June, farmers in Pakistan struggled to combat swarms of the worst locust plague in nearly 3 decades that decimated entire harvests in their agricultural heartlands and sent food prices soaring. The locust is often considered the world's most devastating pest. When locusts get into the so-called sociable phase, their numbers can multiply 20-fold in 3 months. Because each locust can eat its weight in plants, each day a swarm of just 80 million would eat as much food in 1 day as 35,000 people. Also in May, Cyclone Amphan became the fiercest storm to hit India in 100 years. In Kolkata, home to almost 15 million people, the storm tore roofs off buildings, pulled down trees, and overturned cars. Millions of people were left without power, and some areas had no drinking water. Most of the 84 fatalities were caused by falling trees or electrocution. Still looking at the middle of May, in the United States, tropical hurricane activity got an early start with 2 named storms even before the Atlantic hurricane season officially began June 1. It was on May 16th that Hurricane Arthur developed, and then Bertha a few days later on May 27. Let's turn the calendar and look at June. What else happened in June? That month, there was a 7.4 magnitude earthquake in southern Mexico that prompted evacuations, buckled paved roads, and triggered a tsunami that raised the sea level 2 feet. It was felt by an estimated 49 million people, with some tremors reported 400 miles away. In the state of Oaxaca, the quake damaged 8,000 homes, 213 schools, 3 hospitals, 7 bridges, and caused 10 deaths. Also in June, incredibly, Siberia, a place synonymous with very cold temperatures, hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit. In June and into July, heavy monsoon rains across central and eastern China brought historic amounts of rain that caused 21 large-scale floods. For example, in Canton, a city of about 15 million, 6.5 inches of rain fell in 1 hour. The rain flooded 433 rivers, with 33 of them swelling to the highest levels ever recorded. Reports said 219 died, and 54,000 houses collapsed, causing $32 billion in damages. So far, we have talked about just a few events that took place during the first half of this year, 2020. Let me share some things that happened in July. Myanmar reported a terrible mining disaster. A landslide killed 174 miners, another 100 were declared missing, and 54 were injured. In eastern France, drought caused the Doubs River to drop to the lowest levels in more than 100 years. And in Turkey, the soil was cracked by drought. Argentina also has been experiencing what experts call a brutal drought that contributed to an unprecedented calamity. The Paraná River Delta, one of the world's largest and most diverse ecosystems, caught on fire and burned like never before. During the past several years, the average number of hotspots detected by satellites was about 1,800 a year. However, barely halfway through 2020, satellites counted more than 8,000 fires. Still in July, heavy rains driven by Hurricane Isaias caused serious problems in the Dominican Republic. Flood waters cut off 131 communities, damaged more than 1,100 homes, and left over 72,000 without electricity. By the way, you will remember that storm names go in alphabetical order. Well, this particular hurricane was the earliest storm recorded having a name beginning with the letter I. Storms with I names don't usually form until well into the fall season. Keep in mind the calendar is still on July. In Japan, devastating floods and landslides killed 77. 14 of the dead had been living in a nursing home that flooded. Rainfall amounts were unprecedented and record-breaking for the region, reaching about 4 inches per hour. As a result of the heavy rain, 1.3 million people had to be evacuated. The rain destroyed, damaged, or flooded 15,335 buildings and caused 12 landslides. Also, still in July, Alaska experienced a very strong 7.8 magnitude earthquake. Let's turn the calendar and look at August. Did anything happen in August? Oh yes. The rains in Sudan took 100 lives and damaged more than 100,000 homes. Water levels in the Nile River and some of its tributaries rose to heights not seen in the past 100 years. In South Korea's central region, 42 consecutive days of monsoon rains caused deadly flooding. More than 3 inches of rain fell in 1 hour, adding up to almost 8 inches in 24 hours. In some areas, water was chest deep. Over 23,000 acres of farmland were inundated. Almost 9,500 homes were damaged, submerged, or buried in landslides that left more than 30 dead and a dozen missing. Hundreds of roads and bridges were damaged. In China, Typhoon Igos crippled all forms of transportation in the area, including local road, air, water, and rail traffic. Across the country of Yemen, flash floods triggered by torrential rains killed at least 172 people, damaging homes and even some World Heritage sites. Also in August, a powerful Category 4 hurricane named Laura made landfall in southwestern Louisiana, bringing winds up to 150 miles an hour that crushed homes and caused a storm surge in excess of 15 feet. It set the record for the most powerful storm in the state's history. There was also much damage in Texas, Mississippi, and Arkansas. The hurricane killed at least 26 and left about $14 billion in damages. Meanwhile, record-breaking monsoon rains devastated Karachi, Pakistan. Soon after, in Japan, Super Typhoon Haishin produced record rainfall and winds strong enough to snap power poles and flip vehicles. A violent storm struck Italy's northern region, bringing hail, paralyzing floods, strong winds, and a tornado. The severe weather caused millions of euros in damages. Strong winds up to 50 miles an hour uprooted hundreds of trees and caused considerable damage to homes. After causing damage in the Dominican Republic, Hurricane Isaias headed to the United States and made landfall in North Carolina as a Category 1. It then accelerated up the East Coast, causing damages to New York and New Jersey and causing considerable flooding to Pennsylvania. In addition, the storm spawned 34 tornadoes across North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. Several of them EF2 and one EF3. 16 people died. The cost of damage and destruction was estimated at $4.5 billion. Also in August, the Midwest experienced a rare group of storms called derechos, with hurricane-like winds that reached up to 140 miles an hour in the state of Iowa. Some 10 million acres, nearly 1/3 of the state's land used for crops, were flattened or damaged by the winds. It pulled roofs from homes, toppled deep-rooted trees, cracked power lines like toothpicks, and killed 2 people. Thousands were without power for days. In Spain, strong winds fueled wildfires in the south, southeast, and western parts of the country, forcing over 3,100 evacuations. All summer long, cities across the United States experienced record-setting heat, but the hottest temperature were felt in California's Death Valley. In August, the temperature hit 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That was the hottest this planet has been in nearly 100 years. In addition to the record-setting heat, California's 2020 wildfire season was the worst on record. I could spend a lot of time going over the fires that continued month after month in California. There were weeks with dangerous air quality. Cars, buildings, plants, and trees were covered with ashes that looked like snow. Intense lightning storms started hundreds of fires. Some of those fires merged and created immense areas of destruction. Across the states, well over 4 million acres have been burned. The August complex fire was given gigafire status after it surpassed 1 million acres. In November, over 4,000 firefighters were still working to increase containment lines in several areas. Let's turn the calendar again to September. Did anything happen that month? In Mississippi, the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, and Georgia, Hurricane Sally arrived as a Category 2 storm with 105 miles per hour winds that damaged or destroyed 2,000 power poles. Many homes and businesses were impacted by the storm surge and heavy rainfall. The slow-moving storm dropped between 20 and 30 inches of rain that flooded streets and farmland, left hundreds of thousands without power, killed 8 people, and caused over $5 billion in damages. Across the globe in Greece, Cyclone Ionos was a rare cyclone that scraped Italy and went on to hit Malta and Crete with strong winds. Damage was severe in Greece, where the storm stalled, causing flash floods and landslides, and cities were flooded for days. Heavy agricultural damage was reported in rural areas north of Athens. The storm killed 4 and caused at least $100 million in damages. There were also extreme temperature changes in Colorado, where widespread snow fell only 24 hours after thermometers registered temperatures in the 90s. Ankara, the capital city of Turkey, experienced a massive sandstorm that turned the sky gray. Mosquitoes have been so thick in southwest Louisiana since Hurricane Laura that they are killing animals, including horses and cattle. The vast number of bites leave horses and cattle anemic and bleeding under their skins. The animals also become exhausted from constantly moving in an attempt to avoid the biting insects. Farmers in the area where the storm made landfall in August have lost between 300 and 400 cattle. A deer rancher lost around 30 of his 110 animals. In several places, hundreds and even thousands of songbirds fell out of the sky. Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, Missouri, and Pennsylvania reported finding large numbers of birds that apparently died while migrating to their winter grounds. Across the Atlantic Ocean, hundreds of dead birds were also reported in the United Kingdom. Also in September, Ecuador's most active volcano, Sangay, erupted and contaminated water sources, which affected agriculture and livestock. Ash covered more than 6,000 farms that grew blackberries and tree tomatoes, and at least 29,650 acres of pasture that feed 10,000 cattle. I already mentioned the fires in California, but also in the states of Oregon and Washington, unprecedented wildfires occurred. The state of Oregon experienced over 2,000 wildfires that killed at least 11 people, burned more than 1.2 million acres, and destroyed thousands of homes. It was one of the most destructive fire seasons on record in the state of Oregon. Washington State reported more individual wildfires than in any other recorded year. During one 24-hour period, high winds fueled fires that burned over 330,000 acres. All told, over 713,000 acres burned. Close to 200 homes were lost, and 1 person died. Plumes of smoke from the western fires were so large they crossed the United States, the Atlantic Ocean, and carried by the jet stream, even reached the skies of Europe. Some have estimated that the economic impact of this year's fires could be more than $20 billion. It is without question that significant disasters took place in September. Let's turn the calendar again and look at October. Early in October, hundreds were evacuated in France when storms dumped huge amounts of rain and turned streams into churning torrents, sweeping away cars and destroying houses and bridges. The flooding killed at least 12 and swept away more than 100 bodies from a cemetery. Also in October, Hurricane Delta brought more destruction to people in Louisiana who were still trying to recover from Hurricane Laura. With its 100-mile-an-hour winds, it was the 7th storm to make landfall there this year. Then came Hurricane Zeta, which caused 6 deaths. The destruction from Hurricane Zeta caused between $2.5 and $4 billion in damages. According to the United States Geological Survey, the world has experienced well over 100 significant earthquakes so far this year. 9 of them registered as a magnitude 7 or higher. Do you remember the strong earthquake that shook Alaska in July? Well, in October, there was a strong 7.6 magnitude aftershock. Also in October, a powerful 7.0 earthquake struck near a Greek island. However, most of the damage was felt nearby in Turkey, where a village was hit by a 19-foot tsunami. Dozens of buildings were either damaged or completely collapsed in Izmir, formerly known as Smyrna. Over 115 died in Turkey, and more than 1,000 were injured. As of November 8, the number of aftershocks exceeded 2,800. Also in October, an ice storm hit Oklahoma City that coated trees and power lines with thick ice. The weight of the ice broke tree limbs, snapped more than 1,300 power poles, and damaged almost 200 transformers. More than 400,000 outages were reported. The local power company says that is the highest number of storm-related outages it has ever experienced. Officials stated it was one of the most damaging ice storms the city has ever seen, leaving behind an estimated 100,000 tons of debris. The Pantanal in Brazil, the world's largest tropical wetland stretching across Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, has been ravaged by the worst fire in its registered history. So far this year, the area has seen more than 21,200 fires. The wetland is home to thousands of endangered or unusual species, the greatest concentration of wildlife in South America, even more than in the well-known Amazon region. The blazes have already consumed more than 1/4 of the vast floodplain, and as of mid-November, they were still burning. As I make this video, the calendar shows that we are in the middle of November. Let's take a look at a few of the things that have happened in November. In Ethiopia, farmers battled the country's worst locust invasion in 25 years. Since January, close to 500,000 acres of land were impacted, threatening food supplies. Early in November, Goni, a powerful super typhoon, was the 18th to hit the Philippines this year. In several provinces and towns south of Manila, up to 80% of homes and many farms were destroyed. And Batangas, gusts over 174 miles an hour triggered volcanic mud flows that engulfed 150 houses and left at least 7 dead. Here in the United States, the end of November is supposed to mark the close of the hurricane season. However, as November began, Eta strengthened from a tropical storm to a Category 4 hurricane. Such speedy intensification is unusual, especially in November. The hurricane brought 150 miles per hour winds and heavy rain that caused severe flooding in several countries in Central America. For example, across Honduras, floodwaters destroyed more than 450 homes. More than 36 communities were cut off when roads and bridges were washed out. 28 inches of rain left hundreds of people stranded on roofs awaiting rescue. Overall, more than 330,000 were affected by the floods. In El Salvador, the government reported 26 separate landslides that blocked roads. Nearly 2,000 people were evacuated amid heavy rains and flooding. In Nicaragua, the hurricane had a devastating effect on fishing and agriculture, which are the main livelihoods of several communities. In Guatemala, Hurricane Eta caused rivers to overflow their banks. One of them rose more than 13 feet above the previous record. Damaged homes, roads, and bridges have forced thousands to take cover in shelters. The government has declared that a saturated mountain slide that's collapsed and buried at least 150 homes is now a cemetery. 2 other landslides killed at least 12 people. Searches continued for hundreds who were missing. As one meteorologist commented, this hurricane season has been incredibly destructive. November also broke another record here, that of named storms. In an average year, we see about 12 named storms. But in unusually active years, when the Weather Service uses up all 21 names on their list, they use the Greek alphabet to name any subsequent storms. Eta, the storm that caused so much damage in Central America, broke the previous record. As I prepared this video, Hurricane Iota became the 30th storm of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. This hurricane rapidly intensified into a rare Category 5 storm, the second Category 5 hurricane on record in November. Iota was also the 3rd storm in the last 2 months to intensify by 100 miles an hour in 36 hours. Hurricane Iota is producing very heavy rain affecting all 7 Central American countries and part of Mexico, causing life-threatening flash flooding and more landslides. As a result of the soaking brought by Hurricanes Eta and Iota, a landslide is swallowing an entire town in Costa Rica. In fact, the airport in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, is underwater again, and travel by land is seriously hampered due to about $15 million in damages to the county's roads. New Zealand declared a state of emergency after 9.5 inches of rain triggered damaging floods, landslides, and power outages that affected more than 3,300 homes. The amount of rain that fell in 12 hours made it the 2nd wettest day on record. In the meantime, blizzard conditions with heavy snow and freezing rain shut down roads in Saskatchewan and Alberta, Canada. The storm set new snowfall records, and 2 towns set new 48-hour snowfall records. And yet, the calendar shows it is still only the middle of November. But are climate disasters the only problems this planet has seen in 2020? I was shown in my dream how God said that a great sickness would spread around the world. Has it happened? Have you heard of COVID-19, the coronavirus? By March of this year, most people became aware of the pandemic, the great sickness God mentioned in my dream. Soon after, the growing numbers of the sick triggered a chain reaction of other problems. As governments tried to control the sickness, quarantines were established, which prevented many people from going to their place of work. Some businesses with a strong technology base allowed their employees to work from home. However, Mandatory closures shut down thousands of businesses. Without employment, millions have had little or no income. Without income, a large number of the working class have had no way to pay their bills. Obtaining food has been a difficult challenge for many of the world's poor. There has been other ramifications. Travel came to an almost complete standstill. Health inspectors shut down some slaughterhouses when employees became infected with the virus. As a result, in some places, meat grew scarce and prices went up. Travel bans prevented buyers from going to rural areas to purchase fresh fruits, vegetables, and grains. As employees became sick, factories closed and many items such as hygiene and paper products became scarce. Many shoppers found empty store shelves when they searched for cleaning and disinfecting supplies, as well as paper products. Did you encounter that problem? I'm sure you still recall the searches many did looking for toilet paper and disinfecting wipes. And we shouldn't forget the hoarding of hand sanitizer. I'm sure you will recall the entrepreneurs that in teams travel great distances to purchase all of the hand sanitizers with plans to resell to make a great profit. As the sickness spread to other countries, imports such as machine replacement parts became difficult to obtain. And what can we say about the impact of the virus on the education of children and youth? In order to reopen schools that were closed for months, many districts have turned to distance learning, which not only requires computers, but also the availability of the internet. This has provoked anger because the same benefits of education are not accessible to all students. Youth and children have become more vulnerable as in-person classes and college dormitories are spreading the virus. One requirement that has been widely implemented is mandating that people wear a mask that covers their nose and mouth. Some individuals who do not believe that the sickness is a threat to their life and health are refusing to wear one, and that has sparked civil unrest. In some places, businesses have been damaged and employees attacked for asking customers to wear a mask. As I speak, many are frustrated and angry. After months of lockdowns and restrictions, large numbers want normalcy and are choosing to live their lives as if the pandemic did not exist. As a result of that type of mindset, some scientists predict that by the end of 2020, well over 100,000 more Americans will have lost their lives. The Great Sickness has changed funeral customs and procedures related to death and dying. Hospitals and nursing homes forbid visits from relatives of the sick. Gatherings of mourners are forbidden, and funerals strictly limit the number allowed to attend. In some places, funeral homes were so overwhelmed with bodies that they brought in refrigerator trucks to hold the bodies until they could be prepared for burial. During the beginning stages of the pandemic, large cities such as New York were the worst affected, and many healthcare workers from other states volunteered to help. But now the virus is more widespread. The volume of patients has increased, and some hospitals do not have enough healthcare workers. The situation is so serious in North Dakota that healthcare workers who are currently infected with coronavirus are being asked to continue working in COVID-19 units as long as they take extra precautions and do not show symptoms. Hospital officials are saying that soon they will face difficult decisions about how to prioritize care as they run short of beds and staff. While some have been minimizing the great sickness, it is bringing down more lockdowns and restrictions, such as how we worship. Have you, one of your loved ones, or someone you know been affected by the great sickness? What do you think? Has God kept his word about disasters taking place on the earth? One of my neighbors said, "These things happen all the time. There's nothing special going on." Is that what you believe? After hearing and seeing these things, perhaps you are thinking, God has been allowing terrible things to happen to warn me to get my heart ready. Or are you thinking, like my neighbor, that these are common, ordinary events? Remember that what we have seen is only the beginning, the first drops of God's wrath. These events will not stop. Instead, they will increase and intensify. People have chosen to ignore the dream messages God has sent. They prefer to point the finger at the one who shares them, or they listen to rumors and fabricate stories. Many have not paid attention to these messages because they are being led by demonic beings who are blinding them and preventing them from listening. Keep in mind that God has not given messages to everyone. Only a small number of individuals have been given messages to share with others or been asked to carry out difficult assignments. God does not ask everyone to be a messenger for him. He does not ask all to do specific tasks. However, he requires some to walk a certain path to test their faithfulness and obedience. If God has not asked you to walk a certain path to test your faithfulness, is it because he knows that your faith would not endure? Is this why Jesus asked, "Will I find faith when I return?" I have received dreams and have given messages of individuals who have been asked to do things, to walk a certain path as recorded in the Bible. I have mentioned the path Isaiah had to walk, Hosea, Noah, and Ezekiel as well. I have spoken about Abraham. Let's think about Abraham once again. What if Abraham lived today? First, we need to establish the fact that the instructions God gave him were not for today. They were appropriate for his day and age, for his time in history. The instruction to offer a son as a sacrifice will never be repeated because God allowed his own son to serve and die as the final sacrifice for all of us. Let's compare Abraham's assignment with the way information travels today. What if Abraham had access to the technology we have today? What would have been the biblical account of Abraham if the internet had existed in his day? What about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all other forms of social media? What if Abraham and Isaac came down from the mountain and his servants tweeted, "This man just tried to murder his son"? Why, the authorities would have arrested him for attempted murder. But what about you? What would you have done when you heard about this? Would you discuss how he attempted murder? Would you gossip about him being an unworthy leader? what would the internet rumor mill have said about Noah? He was told to build an enormous boat on dry land during a time when rain did not exist. Critics and scientists ridiculed, condemned, and rejected him. Would you have laughed at him too? Would you document your feelings on Facebook and tweet out disgust with Noah? Would you have stayed outside the ark as Noah and his family went inside and the door was closed? Let's take a moment to think about Isaiah and the path he was asked to take. Many do not understand the reality about Isaiah being told to go naked for 3 years. Most people do not realize that he did not live as a hermit in the desert. He was a prominent individual, a professional with a wife, children, and many relatives. He was part of the royal family and familiar with the palace. He was a prophet and a pastor who preached while naked. What position would you have taken if you heard this? Would you have taken advantage of Instagram and Twitter to criticize and call him a pervert? Would you have openly condemned this man who was doing what God asked him to do? While we are on the topic of Isaiah, I would like to explain something that seems to have caused confusion. Have you ever heard someone tell you that Isaiah did not really walk naked, but wore a loincloth or kept his sackcloth on? First, we need to see the definition of a loincloth. A loincloth is a one-piece garment, sometimes kept in place by a belt. It covers the genitals and at least partially the buttocks. Some individuals do not understand the truth about Isaiah walking nude and believe that he was not completely naked but wore a loincloth. If you are wearing a loincloth, you are not naked. In the book of Isaiah, the words naked and barefoot are repeated 3 times. In fact, the Bible quotes the Lord as saying this to his servant, Isaiah. Is that not clear enough? We have been taught to test all things. Let's review exactly what the Bible shows us about this. Isaiah 20, verses 2 to 4. At the same time spake the Lord by Isaiah, the son of Amoz, saying, Go and loose the sackcloth off thy loins, and put off thy shoe from thy foot. And he did so, walking naked and barefoot. And the Lord said, Like as my servant Isaiah hath walked naked and barefoot for 3 years, for a sign and wonder upon Egypt and upon Ethiopia, so shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptian prisoners and the Ethiopian captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. Where do people get the idea that he was not nude for 3 years? From those who want things to be proper and respectable. From those who think like the Puritans, or like artists who painted scenes according to their culture or religious beliefs. Like Adam and Eve being hidden behind plants and trees. Like Jesus always painted on the cross wearing a garment. Another example would be Bible commentators who refuse to take the Bible as it reads, who give their personal viewpoint and expect readers to accept it as biblical guidance. These same biblical commentators teach that the first day of the week is God's day and not the seventh-day Sabbath that God has given. Let's go back to how there are those who think that Jesus wore some sort of covering while he hung on the cross. If so, why does John 19:23 say that the soldiers divided his clothes into 4 parts? Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Did Jesus endure shame? Yes. Why? Because he was naked on the cross. In fact, the book of Hebrews mentions the shame of Jesus endured. Hebrews 12:2. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. So, if Jesus had to go naked, if he suffered shame, why would it be wrong or impossible for a human to be asked to do the same? John 13, verse 16. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. One more thing to think about. Why barefoot? At the burning bush, Moses was told to remove his shoes because he stood on holy ground. Also, the priest never wore shoes when he entered the sanctuary because that would desecrate that holy place. Why is this? Shoes symbolize power, possession, and domination. Remember the custom mentioned in the book of Ruth when Boaz's relative took off his shoe to confirm the sale of the land? Ruth chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. Now this was a manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor. And this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, Buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. This showed that domination and control were being given to another. We can see that walking barefoot showed humility and a lack of power. But Isaiah was told to go naked, take off his shoes, and walk barefoot. Bible scripture tells us about Isaiah, and he did so, walking naked and barefoot for 3 years. If Moses was told to cast off his shoes because he stood on holy ground, why was Isaiah told to walk barefoot? Was it because God knew Isaiah would do what was expected of him? And so for 3 years, God was always with him. The ground Isaiah walked on was always holy because God walked with him. Would God ask someone to do something difficult and then let them walk alone through their trial? On the road to Emmaus, even Jesus walked unseen with 2 distraught disciples. Remember, God doesn't ask all to walk a certain path because God knows you would not do it. God knows the unfortunate truth. You would not do it. What can we say about Hosea? In order to give the people an acted parable about the wrong way they were acting, God instructed Hosea to marry a prostitute. As a result, not Hosea, but other men, his wife's paying customers, got her pregnant. God not only knew all about it before it happened, but he also gave Hosea the names he was to give to the 3 children who were not even his. The prophet Ezekiel was told to build a model city on the ground, sleep with his head in the frying pan, and eat food contaminated with manure. People have created websites and posted slander about my wife and me. Why do they accuse me of wrongdoing? I am simply a messenger, a mail delivery person. For example, those in the houses of ivory have not been asked to do what God had asked other individuals to do, yet they accuse and discredit those who have been asked. Those who dwell together in the houses of ivory are following Satan's instructions. What if God selected a prominent Jew and asked him to eat a ham sandwich or bacon every day? Would that individual have faith and still obey, knowing that millions of faithful Jews would find out about his actions? What would the critics say about him? What would they say to him? Jesus clearly taught that heaven is looking for one very important quality: love. The individuals in the houses of ivory love themselves and choose to condemn and discredit others who are obeying God. Jesus still asks, will I find faith? One individual who has followed the teachings of the houses of ivory used the last stream I posted, 2020, Year Seen Clearly, to discredit and ridicule the messages. At one point, he makes the accusation that I am a being known as truth. He is very misguided and lost. Jesus is the way and the truth. Yet this individual goes to great lengths to state that I am proclaiming to be a being named truth. He ignores an important part of the dream that talks about him and those in the houses of ivory. Let's review a small excerpt from that message so all can see how this individual misconstrues and joins hands with those in the houses of ivory. From the dream called 2020, Year Seen Clearly. At this point, the herald instructs that I look to the east. Even though it is a very great distance away, I observe as if I am there. Yet, I am at home. I see a city that awaits God's wrath. Then I notice the form of an individual who is walking in that city. I know this tall and majestic individual is truth. He is very tall, as if towering over the tops of trees and buildings. In his left hand, he holds a very large tablet. In his right hand, he had a writer's quill. At the top of the tablet are inscribed the words, "The Truth." As Truth observes the city, he constantly records what is not according to what he was created to share. Truth. There are those who walk with their tongue out to savor every flavor. It is not according to all that the Creator desires. I am now to give a personal message for an individual whom I will call Ken, and who resides in Canada. you will know who you are. You walked close to God for many years. Now, He wants you to know that He no longer walks with you because you have left His side and crawled into bed with those in the houses of ivory. God wants you to know that for many years He strolled along with you, but you have deviated from the path that you and He used to walk on. God wants you to know that He is disheartened with you and your total lack of faith. You stand with those who gossip and lie about me. As a messenger for God, I have a question for you. How do you think you will stand on Judgment Day if you continue walking without God? I want to stop here for a minute, and I want to reach out to the ivory of houses. You think you're doing what you think God wants you to do. You're not. There has been enough evidence that the whole world sees, yet you, in your stubbornness, you are condemning me, this ministry, for what God has asked us to do. I'm going to plead, ask, and beg you to get Satan out of your heart. Houses of ivory, ivory of the houses. I think you know what I'm trying to say. This will very well be your last opportunity before the door to the ark closes. You, your family, all of those children will all be lost. Not just you, but those that you have succored, those that you have deceived, those you have brought into your house with you. They will all be lost because of you. Because you are deceiving people, no one will survive the houses of ivory. I'm going to ask you to stop what you're doing. You're not really damaging us. We are being greatly blessed financially, with health. We are having no problems. I don't think you can say the same. Well, many are suffering during this pandemic. Many are trying to find jobs to earn a living. Many are trying to find a way to make $1. We are having no problems. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm simply saying this as God is blessing us. The things you have said, the things you have stated, you are only elevating yourself as to what you think and how you have decided to judge us. But what you don't know is we get communication from others calling you crazy, saying negative things about you. We here at For My People Ministry, we are going to ask you again, stop what you're doing. You will be held accountable because soon the evidence will be shown, and when it is, it will be too late for you. It will be too late for you. I'll leave one thought with you. With the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are reading the messages, that are listening and watching the messages, if they, along with you, are praying for us in this ministry, well, there's two things wrong. Either God is not listening to you at all, or, well, the only other thing is God is blessing us. That's why He is not stopped us, but He has enriched us and made it so that we can continue going. Think about it. Simply for you and those that condemn us, if there are so many praying for us, why are we continuing on? Why are we being blessed? Why are we surviving? With God blessing us, standing before us, guiding us. Who is standing before you, guiding you? Again, you need to stop what you're doing. It's your salvation, your soul, your family, your children, those that you have deceived through the help of Satan. You will be held accountable. As we approach another year, we need to watch and think even more clearly than before. Over 100 years ago, we were told about the impending destruction of Nashville, Tennessee. That destruction has been delayed in mercy to give more time for people to repent and turn to God. I would like to say something to those who do not think the Nashville destruction will occur because they do not believe that God will keep this promise. Many are afraid to speak out against the LGBT and their actions. However, as the event written about 100 years ago foretold, God will pour out his wrath in his time. When it does happen, and it will happen, each must fully understand and comprehend the great change that will take place on this planet, including the religious world. The doubters will be shocked and angry because they were sure that God is all-loving and unwilling to punish. It will also astonish many who have criticized For My People ministry, for those who ignored the words, "Blessed be the ones who believe before the evidence mounts." The evidence will be sure, but they will have lost the great blessing. Jesus still asks, "Will I find faith?" He has also asked whether his people will choose to believe before the evidence mounts. When God fulfills his promise to destroy Nashville, the filthy who are there will remain filthy, and the holy will remain holy. In other words, those who are living a sinful life will remain sinful, and those who are living a holy, reverent life will remain holy. This is kind of like those who were outside the ark when the door was shut. Those who criticized the messenger and discredited the messages will take their place on Judgment Day. Do you recall the dream, Love and Rebuke? In it, the angel Gabriel testified in a court of law, recording the truthfulness of what he had experienced and seen. He declared that he had been sent with messages from God and fully agreed with 1 John 4, 1-2, that Jesus Christ, Son of the Father, came to earth in human flesh. We must not forget that none of Satan's angels can agree with what these verses say. Why? Because Satan wants people to think that Jesus kept his powers while he was on earth. And that is how he was able to live a perfect life. He does not want anyone to believe the truth that Jesus lived a sinless life under the same difficult conditions that all human beings encountered. Gabriel's testimony shows that Satan continues to lie because the incredible sacrifice on Calvary makes it possible for humans to receive the same power Jesus was given to overcome sin. Never allow anyone or anything to steal from you this amazing and marvelous truth. In closing, I want to state that this ministry is unlike any other ministry, any other church, or religious organization. This ministry is unlike any pastor, priest, or imam. All other groups have something in common. They stand with their hand outstretched, asking for money. However, because the grace of God is free, God has instructed this ministry to make His messages freely available. You will recall that we spoke a little about the great sickness, coronavirus or COVID-19. Many churches could not meet and were unable to receive funding that they needed. Many ministries did not receive donations either. Many ministries turned to selling books, DVDs, and other forms of media to earn money. It is so sad that these ministries strive to make a dollar and clearly show no faith. Many ministry speakers brag about all they are doing and then call for money. Many churches and ministries do not speak truth or mention the nearness of the coming of Jesus. They speak about funds and stand holding their hands out. For My People ministry does not sell anything. We do not hold out our hands asking for donations. This ministry lives by faith. All our media, our DVDs, our books, are free. We even wrap them in a package and pay the postage to addresses in the United States and Canada. Our ministry family does not own any property, stocks, or bonds. We rent our home. We believe we are citizens of heaven. Like the song says, "This world is not my home. I'm just passing through." Because God is our Father. We have never asked for money and will not do so. God provides for us in any way He sees fit, and our needs are always met. Nevertheless, as another year approaches, we need to expect more sickness, many deaths, more disasters, empty store shelves, strange and difficult circumstances, civil unrest, and so much more. Things that we do not understand are happening, and they will continue to happen. Strange events in the sky and on the ground. Things that we are not accustomed to, such as unidentified flying objects and the appearance of strange-looking beings. We need to realize that those things are not of God. Instead, these are the initial scenes of the last great battle between good and evil. The end is no longer in the distant future. As we prepare to close 2020 with only a month and a half left, we need to reflect on the things we were told would happen. Why are so many surprised about all the events that occurred? As the calendar turns and another year begins, we need to have stopped looking at others and pointing out their faults. We need to stop the accusations and gossip as illustrated in the dream Houses of Ivory. Instead, each needs to turn their focus from others to themselves. Each needs to look inward and ask, what do I need to do to be ready when Jesus comes? We are at the end of time for this world. God has sent signs to make it easy for everyone to see very clearly. Jesus is about to return to this earth, and He will take those who have faith, those who love one another, those who do not look for faults in others, but have perfected their character and focused only on themselves. As we start a new year, the question is, do you really truly believe you are ready to meet Jesus? Do you really believe you are ready to stand before Him to receive your judgment? When Jesus comes, will He find you ready?